The Journey to the Presidency, Chapter 1. The Decision. It was a crisp autumn morning when Senator Elena Martinez stood on the balcony of her modest home in Austin, Texas, gazing out at the horizon. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue over the city. She had been contemplating this decision for months, weighing the pros and cons, the sacrifices, and the potential impact. Today, she would announce her candidacy for the President of the United States. Elena had always been a fighter. Born to immigrant parents, she had worked her way through college and law school, eventually becoming a prominent civil rights attorney. Her entry into politics was driven by a desire to create systemic change, and she had quickly risen through the ranks, earning a reputation as a passionate and effective legislator. As she prepared her announcement speech, Elena thought about the challenges ahead. The political landscape was more polarized than ever, and the road to the presidency would be fraught with obstacles. But she believed in her vision for a more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future. She was ready to fight for it. Chapter 2. The Campaign Trail. The announcement of her candidacy sent shockwaves through the political establishment. Elena's message of unity and progress resonated with a broad spectrum of voters, and her campaign quickly gained momentum. She traveled across the country, holding rallies in small towns and big cities alike, listening to the concerns of everyday Americans. Her campaign team was a diverse group of young, energetic individuals who shared her vision. They leveraged social media and grassroots organizing to build a formidable movement. Elena's authenticity and willingness to address tough issues head-on set her apart from her opponents. But the journey was not without its challenges. She faced intense scrutiny from the media and opposition campaigns. Every misstep was magnified and every word was dissected. Yet, Elena remained steadfast, always bringing the conversation back to the issues that mattered most: healthcare, education, climate change, and economic justice. Chapter 3. The Debates. The presidential debates were a critical juncture in the campaign. Elena knew she had to perform well to solidify her position as a serious contender. The first debate was held in a packed auditorium in Ohio, with millions watching live on television. Elena stood confidently at the podium, her calm demeanor belying the intensity of the moment. She articulated her policies with clarity and passion, challenging her opponents on their records and presenting a compelling vision for the future. Her ability to connect with the audience and her command of the issues earned her widespread praise. As the debates progressed, Elena's momentum continued to build. She gained endorsements from key figures in the Democratic Party, and her poll numbers steadily climbed. The race was tightening, and the prospect of a Martinez presidency was becoming increasingly real. Chapter 4. The Election. Election day arrived with a palpable sense of anticipation. The nation was deeply divided, and the outcome was far from certain. Elena spent the day visiting polling stations, thanking volunteers, and encouraging voters to make their voices heard. That evening, as the results began to come in, the tension was unbearable. The race was incredibly close, with key battleground states too close to call. Hours turned into an agonizing wait as the nation held its breath. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, the decisive moment came. The state of Pennsylvania was called for Elena Martinez, pushing her over the 270 electoral vote threshold needed to win the presidency. The crowd at her campaign headquarters erupted in cheers and tears of joy. Elena took the stage, her family by her side, to deliver her victory speech. She spoke of the hard-fought journey, the sacrifices made, and the collective effort that had brought them to this moment. She pledged to be a president for all Americans, to bridge the divides, and to work tirelessly to fulfill the promises of her campaign. Chapter 5. The Presidency. Elena Martinez was inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States on a cold January day. The ceremony was a historic moment, not only because she was the first woman of color to hold the office, but also because of the hope and optimism she represented. Her presidency began with a flurry of activity. She worked with Congress to pass landmark legislation on healthcare reform, climate action, and economic recovery. She prioritized diplomacy and rebuilding alliances on the global stage, and she remained committed to her promise of unity, reaching across the aisle to find common ground on critical issues. The road was not always smooth, and there were setbacks along the way. But Elena's leadership and unwavering dedication to her principles inspired a new generation of Americans to believe in the power of democracy and the possibility of change. Epilogue: A legacy of hope. Years later, as Elena Martinez reflected on her presidency, she knew that the journey had been worth every challenge. She had faced the highest highs and the lowest lows, but through it all, she had remained true to herself and her vision for a better future. Her legacy was not just the policies she had enacted or the barriers she had broken. It was the hope she had ignited in the hearts of millions, the belief that together they could build a nation that lived up to its highest ideals. And as she looked out at the horizon once more, she knew that the journey was far from over. The work of democracy was never done, and the fight for a more perfect union would continue, one step at a time. The End, by Michael.